because training for me is quite often just a surface level thing. It's just about commands and compliance, but relationship building is about understanding and connection. And the idea here is that if the goal was just to get your dog to listen, sure, you could do obedience, absolutely. But if the goal is to get a true partnership, then you have to go deeper. But here's the funny thing. Obedience gets so much easier when we have that deep bond connection. It's so much easier. I've often said that it's easier to get a dog to come when they're called, when they want to be with you. Why do they want to be with you? Because you get them, because you understand them, not because you train them to, but because you understand them at a deeper level. It's a massive game changer. And who doesn't like for things to be easier? I'm interested in this game changer. Are you? Today we're talking about, is your dog ignoring you or are you ignoring your dog? Let's get into it. Ready to have a calm and peaceful life with your dog without the stress of those fear-based behaviors? Hi, I'm Tracy, and I've been there, overwhelmed by all the conflicting dog training advice and unsure of what to do next. But now I help dog lovers like you simplify your life with your dog by building confidence naturally, fostering trust, and addressing those fear-based challenges. So, if you're ready, stop chopping those chicken wieners and let's get to it. Well, hello, my dog-loving friend. It's Tracy. Welcome to Beyond Obedience, the podcast. Oh my gosh, spring is in the air. Spring is in the air, my friends. I will say, all the spring smells are in the air right now, and my dog's recall is less than stellar. Anyone else feeling that? Like, are you feeling that? Like, there's a little bit more pause when when I call them, the dogs are kind of like, yeah, but the smells. If that is happening for you, know that you are not alone. Springtime is a time where we may have to just take a step back, maybe put in some precautions, maybe put that long line back on. maybe if you're a person that uses treats, maybe get the good treats out because the smells are coming out for reals. I will say that I quite often joke about the fact that Nigel's version of recall, especially if I'm outside and I'm walking towards him and I call his name, he looks at me and then he'll sit and be like, you're heading this way anyway, so I'll wait, and I call that the new free call right there. They're like, you're coming this way, so really why would I put that much effort into it if I have to come all the way back to you? And honestly, a lot of times I just let it go. I'm just like, yeah, you're right, I'm heading that way anyway. It's terrible, right? That's terrible. But it did get me to thinking about, Nigel's personality versus, say, Rue's personality. Rue, my Australian Shepherd, completely different. Like, she could be, I don't know, like out of sight, like not even anywhere near me, and I call her, and she just comes a-flying with, like, such... Like, you called? Like, what can I do for you? Like, just the intensity of not only her response to her recall, but when she gets there, there's that, like, I'm here now. What can I do for you? You want me to get you something? You want me to pick this rock up? You want me to make you a sandwich? What do you want? Like, just the sheer difference in recall alone on my the difference between my dogs is kind of crazy. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. That's where the topic sort of came about. This idea is your dog ignoring you? Wah wah. Or are you ignoring them? What? What? Flipping the script today, my friends. Are you actually ignoring them? What do I mean by that? Well, let's talk about this idea of understanding your dog's dogonality. Now, I will say, first and foremost, before we get into this, dogonalities is something that I have been chewing on this idea for a very long time. Full disclosure, it is from my work with natural horsemanship. I started to learn this concept of horseanality from the Pirellis back in the day, many, 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 many moons ago. And I remember thinking like it was such a cool concept to kind of understand your horse's personality. And I tried at that time to kind of mold it into like, how would I do that for dogs, right? Because there's a big difference, obviously, between horses and dogs, right? Biggest difference being prey predator. Am I right? And so it's been in a notebook. Like it was in a notebook for a very long time. Just my odd scramblings of like, how can I do this for dogs? How can I take this same sort of core concept and make it into a dog thing? And there it sat for many, many, many years, just in a notebook, just these weird scribblings. And I should see if I can find that notebook again, because I still remember, I still have the picture of it in my mind, because I was trying to do it as a quadrant, but then it got like really complex and it had all these different angles. And I'm like, I have made something enormously complicated. I'm like, this isn't going to help anybody. Anyway, so I would put it away and then it would come back. I'd put it away and come back. But now I have come to a place where I've sort of rebuilt this idea of the Dogonality. It does have a slight nuance to it, so you got to hang with me for a little bit. But I am going to talk about why I think it's important to look at dogs this way, how it helps shape not only the way that I relate to the dogs, but it actually helps shape how I respond to them. It tends to take away the frustration that one might feel, because somebody that has a noof like mine that, you know, when we call them, they're less than enthusiastic to come back, might have the idea that their dog is stubborn, when in essence, they're not really stubborn. That's not really what's happening there. He's not being like, I don't want to do it. It's just like there's not really much in it for him. So when I flip the script on that and I think to myself, okay, if he's not really in it, there's nothing in it for him. How can I be more motivating? What can I do to actually inspire him a little bit more? And that's where this whole idea gets a little bit deeper, because training for me is quite often just a surface level thing, right? It's just about commands and compliance, but relationship building is about understanding and connection. And the idea here is that if the goal was just to get your dog to listen, sure, you can do obedience, absolutely. But if the goal is to get a true partnership, then you have to go deeper. But here's the funny thing. Obedience gets so much easier when we have that deep bond connection. It's so much easier. I've often said that it's easier to get a dog to come when they're called, when they want to be with you. Why do they want to be with you? Because you get them, because you understand them, not because you train them to, but because you understand them at a deeper level. It's a massive game changer. And that's why I kind of love this. So let's dive into the Dogonality framework, shall we? Oh, I rub my hands. Oh, wait, let's do this. There we go. All right, let's get into it. Now, there are 4 core Dogonalities. And so let me break that down for you a little bit. First and foremost, we are going to split the Dogonalities into left brain and right brain. And before anyone else jumps on here and talks about the fact that it's not actually the left and the right, I know I'm just doing this for simplicity's sake. There is no need for me to get into prefrontal cortex or amygdalas or any of those things. It just overcomplicates it, okay? So we're just going to keep it real simple. Left brain, right brain. The left brain is the thinking brain. That is the side that accesses English as a second language. So all of our obedience training, all of that good stuff. And then the right brain is the instinctual brain. That's the brain where they got fight, flight, avoidance, prey drive is in there. All of that instinctual stuff, that's in the right brain, okay? And then the other parts of this is either introvert or extrovert. Okay, so an introvert, very simply, we're just going to say it's a dog that doesn't like to move their feet. And an extrovert is a dog that likes to move their feet. So we're keeping it very, very simple, but the simplicity of it is what is going to help you really, really dig deep into your dog's own dogonality to help you get that deeper bond and connection. Okay, so for example, Nigel would be what I would call a left brain introvert. So he is a thinker. And I know some people might find that challenging to believe because sometimes these dogs come off not only as stubborn, but maybe a little aloof, maybe not as smart. And nothing could be further from the truth. This dog is a Newfoundland dog. He's actually a working breed dog. These dogs are bred to do water rescue. They're incredibly smart. But he's an introvert. He doesn't like to move his feet unless it's something's in it for him, right? So they're not being stubborn, but they just need a real reason to engage. Okay. In contrast to that, the left brain extrovert, I like to call them the life of the party, right? These are also working dogs that like to move their feet. So think of border collies, Australian shepherds, your working breed dogs that like to move their feet. These guys aren't being disobedient, but they do need some structure, right? They do need you to give them a little bit of structure. Otherwise, you pull a border collie out of the field where they're used to herding sheep and bring them into your downtown apartment, they're going to make their own fun, right? They're going to make their own party. That's why I call them the life of the party. And then in contrast to that, we have the right brain. So the right brain dogs are your instinctual dogs. So your right brain introvert is going to be an instinctual dog that doesn't move their feet. These guys are going to appear aloof, but they're not really. They're just trying, they process things more slowly. They're way in their head. They're instinctual. So they're caught up in probably fear, but they can't get out of it, but they don't like to move their feet. So they're the ones that you see like they're kind of frozen. They like to hide. They've got their head down. They're trying not to engage. Where in contrast, your right brain extrovert is an instinctual dog that likes to move their feet. Now this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. So hang with me for a second because I kind of have to separate these two into two categories. So your right brain extrovert that's confident, that's your instinctual dog that likes to move their feet, but they're confident about that. Those dogs, we call them the fearless explorers. These dogs, they're not ignoring you, but they are hyper-focused in the environment. These dogs are hunting, seeking, searching, prey drive dogs, right? And so we can get really offended by those dogs because they are not at all engaged, but they're not ignoring you. They literally aren't accessing English as a second language. They're in their right brain. They can't hear you. You can call their name. They're not using that side of the brain right now, right? Whereas the right brain extrovert that's unconfident, those are the dogs that are overwhelmed by fear. Okay, so we call them like overwhelmed runners, right? They're not being dramatic, but they're trying to find safety and they're going to run first and ask questions later. So these guys are the flighty ones. They are the bolters. You open the door and they hear a noise and they burst out. They flee. That's what's happening with your right brain extroverts, the unconfident kind. So knowing this is going to change everything for you because instead of fighting your dog's nature, you're actually going to start to work within it. So when you start to understand your dog's natural tendencies, your training becomes, and your communication honestly becomes more intuitive, and it's actually more of a dialogue instead of just sit and stay. Trust grows when you meet the dog where they are instead of forcing them to be something that they're not. And I see that a lot. I see a lot of people trying so hard, doing training methodologies that just don't work within that dog's nature, right? And when that happens, you end up correcting them all the time, but you can go from constantly correcting them to actually enjoying your time together. I know now you're probably wondering like, okay, I get it. But how do I find out? How do I know what's my dog's dogonality? Well, I'm glad you asked. So I've created a quiz. Pretty excited about it. Now, before we get into the quiz, I'm gonna give you the link for the quiz. You're gonna be able to like log in, take the quiz, find out what your dog's Dogonality is, and then you're gonna get a bunch of emails from me telling you all about how you can connect with your dog's Dogonality. It's gonna be super fun. I put a lot into this. So I want to make sure that we're all on the same page when we take this quiz, okay? When you take the quiz, you're going to answer the questions, or pick the answer that is closest to your dog, that resembles closest to your dog. Obviously, I can't say exactly what your dog would do in every single scenario. So pick the one that's closest, but here's the caveat. If you are someone who has been training your dog, I want you to answer the questions of what your dog would do prior to training. Remember, obedience training is asking the dog to be less doggy. It's being less of who they are. This quiz is supposed to tell you who your dog's innate personality is, their innate qualities. So if, for example, if you've been working really hard on impulse control with your dog, and the question is like, if you open the door, would your dog bolt out? And you're like, no, my dog would never bolt out of the door because I taught him not to. I don't want you to answer that way. I want you to answer the way your dog was before you train them. Okay? Because not that the training was bad. I'm just saying we want to know your dog's innate qualities. That's where the Dogonality stuff really, really comes into play. So, are you interested? Are you going to try this? Let's try this. Let's try this. Try this quiz for me. Okay. Because I want to know. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to beyondobedience.ca/quiz. You're going to take the Dogonality quiz. You're going to get your answer. And then if you sign up for more info from me, you'll get some emails explaining all the different ways that you can really get a very deep bond and connection with your dog's unique Dogonality. Isn't that fun? It's going to be super fun. You'll love it. That website link again is beyondobedience.ca/quiz. Okay, take the Dogonality quiz. And then we're going to have a post in the Living Beyond Obedience group. But once you've taken the quiz, I want the results. So inside the Living Beyond Obedience group, I want you to post your results. What did you get? Do you agree with it? And if you don't agree with it, respond to the email and tell me why. And we'll talk about it. Okay? Does that sound like a plan? I'm excited about this. Can you tell I'm excited about this? This is a lot. We've done a lot to do this. So I want you to make sure you take full advantage of that. All right. So there you go. That is today's episode. Is your dog ignoring you? Are you ignoring them and their innate nature? We're going to find out more. Take that Dogonality quiz. Let me know how it goes. Make sure you're inside the Living Beyond Obedience Facebook group so that you can post your answers and get some feedback. And hey, if you liked this type of stuff, be sure to give me a 5-star written review on Apple. Okay, it really helps to push that podcast out to more and more people like you and me. Or leave a comment on Spotify, share it on your socials, whatever you can do that helps. I would really, really appreciate it. And as always, get out there today, my friend, and be the person that your dog thinks you are. Because your dog thinks that you are amazing, and so do I. Have a fantastic day. I will see you in the next episode. Bye for now. Oh, and one more thing. This podcast is meant for entertainment and education purposes only, and it's not meant to replace hands-on professional training. If you're really struggling with your dog, please reach out to a professional in your area. All right, I think that's it. Bye for now.